When I was 14 years old, I woke up one Sunday morning to find out that my friend Charlotte had been stabbed and murdered. It was a combination of this tragic event and growing up and seeing so much social injustice in my community that I had loads of questions. And it soon became very clear to me that important decisions were being made about my community and people who looked like me. We were not proportionally represented, nor were we a part of the decision-making process. So I decided to get involved in politics because I saw that was a way of affecting positive change in my community, and I began advocating in various ways. And then at the age of 22, after half a bottle of wine, I submitted an application to stand for the upcoming local council elections. 9 months of door knocking, campaigning, leafleting, talking to residents, and lots of walking, I was elected as the youngest black female councillor in London. Thanks. This sparked a lot of media interest, and I guess with the average age of UK councillors being 60, white and male, I can see why somebody who looks like me is quite peculiar. But I use this new media interest and the opportunities to talk about issues and share a perspective on topics that tend to be ignored. I was even invited to the European Parliament in Strasbourg to talk about youth engagement, democracy and politics. This was before Brexit. And that's where I happened to make this impromptu speech in response to the awful things I was hearing from the young far right say about the Syrian refugee crisis and the Syrian refugee. But I came back home to London being a relatively normal young person that's a politician, and months had passed. And it turns out the video of me making that speech was put on Facebook. Within a few days, that speech went viral, that video went viral. And it racked up hundreds and thousands of likes and views and shares across all my social media platforms. My social media followers increased. I finally got that blue tick on Twitter. And if I can be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I thought, at 26, yeah, I've made it. Ellen's going to invite me onto her show, and that Idris Elba was finally going to notice me. None of that has happened. I'm still waiting for Idris to respond to my many declarations of love. But one day, when I was at the gym getting hashtags on my body ready, my Spotify playlist kept cutting out and I couldn't understand why. So I stopped the treadmill, picked up my mobile phone to see why Rihanna's Work wasn't playing. To only see floods of notifications full of racist abuse, sexist and racial slurs, and even death threats across my social media platforms. Time stopped, and I was strongly advised to call the police, and I did, and the police said, yeah, you need to come down to the station to make a statement. I wasn't frightened of going to the police station. I was frightened of telling my Nigerian mother that I had to go to the police. And I remember going back and forth making various statements, and there was one day I was at home and the doorbell rang. And I opened the door, and it was a local police team saying, hey, Seyi, we're just doing some checks around the house. We've received the report and just want to make sure that you're okay. And that's when it really dawned on me how serious this was. As a UK councillor, my address was public at the time, and so there was a real concern for my safety. And not only did that make me angry, it made me frustrated and upset with the social media platforms for their lack of response. It turns out that very video was posted on a neo-Nazi website. I had never, ever experienced online abuse of this magnitude before. And I never really understood its impact. But now we know that women are 27 times more likely to be harassed online globally. That black women are most likely to be mentioned in problematic and abusive tweets. And that young girls are closing down their social media accounts because of the fear and experience of online abuse. So online abuse is not only having a devastating impact on mental health and well-being, it's also a violation of human rights and is eroding our democratic engagement. If young women and girls cannot stand in public life, cannot participate in our democracy, there is something seriously wrong with our society. Online abuse is evidently a huge problem worldwide. And just like combating offline harassment and abuse is complex, it takes time and resources, it also requires all of us to play an active role in keeping our public spaces safe. So that's why I'm going to spend the next few moments talking about what we, the majority, can do to start reclaiming our online communities. But first, I'd like to start with talking to those in the room that may be targeted or feel vulnerable online. I stand in solidarity with you, and I know exactly what it's like, and so I want to share some tips that I have learned over the last couple of years. They are digital security, documenting and reporting abuse, and your digital self-care. So when it comes to digital security, I know most of you have heard this before, and some of you are probably rolling your eyes. I get it, I did. But just after the video went viral, and a few months before the racist abuse, I was hacked. And so I'm a big advocate in investing in our digital security the same way we would offline with our bikes, our cars, our front doors. Not only is it important for ourselves, but it's also important for our loved ones. So when it comes to digital security, set strong passwords. Password 1234, 5 or 6 isn't going to cut it. When it comes to digital security, look at two-step verification. If you find it a faff, so will those that are trying to hack you. And lastly, your privacy settings. Make sure that you stay in control of what you want to be private and public. Now, when it comes to documenting and reporting abuse, I saw that, through my experience, there was huge gaps in supporting victims of online abuse. So I set up Glitch, an advocacy, campaigning, and training organization dedicated to ending online abuse. And we provide a free resource on how you can do just that. And we recommend that you take a screenshot of the abuse, file it in a folder, keep a simple table, with the date, time, and the website where it took place, and most importantly, how it made you feel. You may at that moment not want to go to the police, but you may change your mind in the future. So just keep a document of what's happened, and it also allows you to see the patterns, potentially, of what is going on. And finally, digital self-care. This is something that is often forgotten when we talk about online abuse or online safety more generally. Self-care is not this redefined consumerist notion of expensive massages and silent retreats. Self-care at its core is about boundaries, is about communicating and respecting boundaries. So why wouldn't this apply in the digital space too? So when it comes to your digital self-care, you decide where and what is private and public. You define who and where you'll spend your energy. You don't have to be on every single platform. FOMO is not real. And finally, determine what kinds of online abuse you're going to respond to and how. If you want to go to the police, you want to tell a trusted adult, you want to tell a friend, your employer, you have every right to. Just make sure you tell somebody. Often those that experience online abuse and harassment are told to just ignore it, to block it, to censor themselves, or even worse, they are told to just leave the online space altogether. But if somebody was being catcalled outside the South Bank Centre, or somebody attacked me on stage, would you tell us to just leave the public space? So why do we say that when it comes to the online space? And if that has been your response in the past, or a belief that you hold today, then I'd like to say to you that we cannot afford to be desensitized and complicit in the takeover of our online spaces. 4 in 10 people in the UK and the US experience online abuse. That's 40%. And let's just say that those that are committing the abuse Spreading toxicity and causing division online make up, 1%? That means that the 59% of bystanders are the majority. And so we have a responsibility to become active bystanders. This does not absolve social media companies of their responsibility. Oh, no way. Social media companies should be made to invest in digital citizenship education. There should be a levy on these companies so that it can be better enforcement of legislation, improve access to justice, and empower civil society groups. But we all have a part to play in protecting our online spaces, the way we protect our parks, our community centres, our libraries, our high streets. We all have a choice. From brands, employers, schools, companies, every single individual here, we have a choice. We can either choose to be passive and neutral, or we can choose to be active bystanders and begin to reclaim our online public spaces. I get it. I wasn't an active bystander until I was targeted. But we cannot wait to become the 40%. We cannot wait to become targeted before we act. We have a duty to act now. And we must begin with understanding that online abuse is all of this. It's hate speech, it's trolling, it's doxing, it's the sharing of non-consensual photography, it's revenge porn, it's a whole lot more. And we must understand that various tactics are used on different communities, and therefore the impact is also different. So when you see these types of abuse, here are 5 things that you can do. You can help report the abuse to social media platforms, firstly. Don't just scroll away. And second, you can reply to the post as originally as intended, because that helps counter derailment and manipulation. You can encourage the person that is being targeted to document the abuse and to report it. You can also send an encouraging message or a gift. Look, I could not have made it through that horrendous experience if it wasn't for the outpouring of love and support, not just from my friends, but from strangers too. I had one friend literally confiscate my phone and force me to go outside and exercise with her. And I had another friend who sent me this amazing self-care box from the Blurt Foundation. But I also had strangers from around the world standing in solidarity with me, and that helped me realize that I wasn't alone. So we can always do that for somebody else. And lastly, we can send a resource that we have found helpful. It can be around mental health, it could be around self-care, it can be a resource on Glitch's website, it can be a video, a cat meme. Look, for me, it's a picture of Idris Elba. That always does it. We can do one of these things, 2 of these things, 5 of these things, but we must do something. Because as more and more of the world's population joins social media, more of us need to be active bystanders. Did you know that Facebook has 2.3 billion monthly active users? That's 3 times more than the population of Europe. Yet, unlike Europe, it doesn't have a democratically elected governance structure and no emergency services. So we need to be that support to each other. We need to be active bystanders so that our online spaces can be a place where we can continue finding positive belonging, where we can find inspiration and cultivate our identity and meet amazing people, some that we'll probably never meet in real life. I truly, truly believe that the online space can continue having a positive impact for everybody. But not if we allow online abuse and hate speech to stifle freedom of expression and erode our democracy. Not if we allow our online spaces to become hijacked and weaponized. And not if we allow online technologies to replicate and exacerbate inequalities we see in society today. So I invite you to join me in this mission of fixing this glitch in our online communities and help end online abuse. Thank you.